The DeLorean was an iconic piece of work, but not necessarily for the reasons you think. Less Back to the Future and more Back to the Scrapyard. Much like British cuisine, it's a tad overhyped when there's definitely better stuff out there. But I'm getting ahead of myself, even if the car was as likely to set on fire as my unintentional flambés. In 1981, DeLorean had one thing going for it, and one thing only. It was featured in the highly successful Back to the Future, which earned $381.1 million, making it the highest-grossing film of 1985, and one of the most repeated movies seen on TV on any given holiday. Some of you are probably yelling at your screens right now, but just because something looks cool doesn't mean it's good. Case in point, any Marvel movie made after 2012. But I digress. The coolest thing about the fictional DeLorean was that it was a time machine. It might seem like a harsh assessment, but let's recap. Let me be honest, as my wife's not listening, the DeLorean did look cool as a time machine. Doctor Who has got nothing on these wheels. The stainless steel exterior and gull-wing doors make it the perfect choice for a time machine. These factors give the car a futuristic look that was unlike anything else on the road. And let's not forget about the flux capacitor, the glowing, spinning device that powered the time machine. It was the perfect combination of science and Hollywood magic. The only thing that could rival this combination would be if Neil deGrasse Tyson became a stuntman. Of course, the real star of the show was its time-traveling capabilities. The car could travel through time by reaching a speed of 88 miles per hour, which was presented in the film as a flash of light and a loud explosion. And when the DeLorean left its time period, it also left a trail of fire behind it. Talk about making a dramatic exit. My country couldn't compete with that, even when leaving the EU. In the movie, the DeLorean also had a few other tricks up its sleeve. The car was equipped with a Mr. Fusion home energy reactor, which allowed it to run on garbage instead of gasoline. And let's not forget about the hover conversion. In the movie sequel, the DeLorean was upgraded to fly through the air like a futuristic hovercraft. Because where we're going, we don't need plots that make sense. The car undoubtedly captured the imagination of audiences around the world and became a symbol of sci-fi fantasy. But in reality, the car is an engineering and design mistake. It was underpowered, slow, and handled like a cow on roller skates. Not to mention the V6 engine, which was about as reliable as a chocolate teapot. This engine, which would have worked better if powered by steam, was prone to overheating, oil leaks, and a whole host of other issues. And let's not forget that the car was woefully underpowered, which for a sports car is a bit of an issue. But wait, it gets better. And by that, I mean worse. Much, much worse. The DeLorean's electrical system was a complete nightmare. The car had so many electrical issues that it made the wiring in your grandma's house look like a masterpiece of engineering. From the wiring for the gull-wing doors to the headlights, everything was a potential fire hazard waiting to happen. I'm surprised John DeLorean himself didn't varnish it with a coat of gasoline. As for the design, I'll admit it was unique, but unique doesn't always mean right. Yes, the DeLorean looks cool with its stainless steel exterior and gull-wing doors, but the panels were prone to scratches and dents, and there was no easy way to fix them. And if you wanted to repaint the car, well, good luck with that. Painting stainless steel is like getting me out of bed before 10 a.m. Try as you might, it's going to be stressful for all involved. The gull-wing doors might look cool, but they were heavy and unwieldy. And this is just the start. The thing had just as many problems as I do convincing my wife that I'll fix the fence that's been down since that freak boating accident in 2012. And that's not even getting into the drugs bust that helped the car get its legendary status. More on that later. Probably the biggest design flaw of the DeLorean was its handling. The steering was heavy and unresponsive, and the suspension was like a pogo stick. It felt about as sporty as a cup of tea, with the main difference being that that cup of tea would probably go round corners better. The reason behind this terrible handling was mainly due to its engine placement. It was meant to be mid-engined, but the colossal V6 had to be housed at the back, giving the car a very generous gluteus maximus and horrible weight distribution. Hopefully where Marty's going, he doesn't need roads, especially corners. Now, mounting an engine in the back doesn't necessarily make the car bad. The Lamborghini Countach, the Ferrari F40, and the Porsche 911, which are all currently housed in my garage, are rear-engine mounted cars, but like all the other mechanics on the car, DeLorean just couldn't get it right. It's so bad, in fact, that owners have been known to fit shorter, stiffer coils to lower the car's stance in a desperate attempt to get it to handle more like a car and less like a bus. The DeLorean is definitely a story of style over substance. That's why it was perfect for a movie. It just needed to look good on screen, even if it was breaking down behind the scenes between takes. So, pretty much your average movie star then. With that being said, let's focus a little bit more on the car's aesthetics and just why it looks so damn good. Then we can go back to slagging it off as a piece of rubbish. Inside, the car has a jolly good balance of classic and futuristic. In Back to the Future, of course, it leans heavily towards the future. The doc definitely went to town when it came to the customization in this movie. The actual car has a much more modest interior, including a baffling knob known as a rheostat knob, responsible for dash light intensity. Important stuff, I'm sure you'll agree. The amazing thing about this small detail is that it was given the same size control as the ones for the fan and the temperature. This is a great example of how this car was all about the flourishes at the expense of practicality. It was the equivalent of a diver with the latest scuba kit, but with an overwhelming fear of water. That being said, weird knobs aside, the inside of the car has a nice balance of class and sci-fi to satisfy any enthusiast. Before it inevitably spontaneously combusts, of course. Speaking of weird buttons for you to push, there's one marked like on your screen. I don't know what it does, so why not press it and let me know? It's the outside of this car that really separates it as an icon. Its wedge design reminds me of a tasty spot of cheese, and you can see its influence in other futuristic cars like Tesla's Cybertruck. It's no coincidence that the car's design is ravishing. It's the brainchild of legendary designer Giorgetto Giugiaro, the man behind the Maserati Ghibli, BMW M1 and the Lotus Esprit. If there's a chap that you need to draw you a sexy car, then this is the man you need to speak to. He'll draw them for you, just like his French cars. And he didn't disappoint when it came to the DeLorean. It's like the man was told to make a time machine and came back with this. It's spot on. But what's not spot on is pretty much anything that the car needs to function. It has serious safety and quality control issues. It doesn't take a car expert to tell you that it helps not to die in a vehicle. It was put together, and I use that term loosely, in Northern Ireland by a team that had about as much experience putting a sports car together as an octopus. One of the biggest safety concerns featured those massive gull-wing doors I talked to you about earlier. If you rolled the car, then you're not getting out of it. Simple as that. You're essentially trapped in a massive bomb, just waiting to go off. It wouldn't be surprising if the answer to the safety manual's question, "What do I do if I roll the car?" was, "Don't." And just when you thought the story of the DeLorean couldn't get crazier, just bearing in mind that the car almost didn't make it to the big screen and was instead, wait for it, a fridge. Now this isn't a joke about the car's handling like a fridge, but the fact that the Back to the Future crew originally chose one to be the iconic time machine. This isn't the crazy bit. That's instead the drug bust that led to John DeLorean hitting the headlines and the film's director, Robert Zemeckis, seeing the car on the news. The rest, as they say, is history. In 1982, DeLorean was arrested and charged with trying to obtain and distribute 55 pounds of cocaine worth $24 million. That's almost as much as my pals in London's financial district. The FBI argued that he was intending to use the money to save his business, which was faltering due to the million reasons we've mentioned in this video. DeLorean was eventually acquitted, but not before spending millions on lawyers and creditors. He should have just asked me. I probably would have had a spare few mil in my jacket pocket. So that's the DMC DeLorean, one of the best examples of style over substance ever produced. It truly is the Zack Snyder of cars. But there's no doubting it's an icon. The car, not Zack Snyder. Very few cars have the kind of impact that the DeLorean has just by looking at it. But then again, not many cars transport to a different time when they hit 88 miles per hour. My car just transports to the scrapyard at that speed. And off-screen, it's fair to say, so would the DeLorean. For a closer look at the most iconic cars in Hollywood, and to keep the log fire burning in my manor house, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay dashing, and if you can't be dashing, classy will do.